What's going on, everybody? Casey here, and today we're going to be doing a video that I have been waiting to do for about 2 years now, which is the Assassin's Creed games ranked as of 2020. I wanted to do this back in 2018 when I made the Halo games ranked video, but I hadn't finished playing Odyssey yet, so I couldn't do an accurate review, and then no Assassin's Creed games came out in 2019, so I decided to just wait till 2020. First rule here, this is only covering main series entries in the game, so spin-off titles such as Liberations or Assassin's Creed Chronicles, or even let's just say like Assassin's Creed handheld games that were on the DS, those are not counted here. These are just main series entries. There's 12 spots here, and we're going to be going from the bottom of the list and working our way up. These are ranked in terms of my opinion, so I'm taking into effect what I thought were the worst and best, and also favoritism, nostalgia. Obviously it's going to play a factor in this. You can't really make a video like this and not be subjective to a degree. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so in last place at the 12th spot we have the original Assassin's Creed. Now this game, I gotta say, when you go back and play it like through today's lenses, it's garbage. If you were playing it back in 2007 when it originally came out, you definitely saw a lot of potential and innovation there that Ubisoft went through, and a lot of different things that they took away from the Prince of Persia series previously, but this game has a lot of issues. Number one, the game's gameplay loop is so repetitive, it's ridiculous. It's rinse and repeat the same thing, I think 3 or 4 times. You're doing the same pattern of assassination kills, infiltrating the city, doing redundant tasks. It is so boring. The game, for the time it came out, looked gorgeous, and the concept of being able to parkour and climb every little thing in the building, every little detail of the building, the ledges and just everything. It's really cool. Playing as an assassin, part of this creed, hunting down Templars, and during the Crusade era of world history, like, it has got its ties, its interests. It has interesting factors to it, but it's that gameplay loop, it's that lack of depth with the storyline, it's that over push into just the modern day storyline, that you spend so many hours doing the modern day storyline. It's so bland, so forgettable, so flat. It's just, this game had a lot of issues. More issues than any of the games that are coming after on the list, and so much so that it just doesn't compare at all to any Assassin's Creed. Like every single Assassin's Creed game in comparison to the original is better in gameplay and in story. This game doesn't do anything better than any of the other titles. It started it all, and it showed potential, and it laid out the groundwork for the franchise, but in today's realm, through today's perspective, it's not a good game. Alright, so in 11th place we have Assassin's Creed 3. AC3 originally was super high up on my list of favorite Assassin's Creed games because of its time period. The colonial times, Revolutionary War era, seeing our founding fathers, putting an assassin in the depths of the Revolutionary War in general, just all of that stuff. Like, this is I am a history major. US history is what I focus on. This game had all the advantages of me falling in love with it. And when I played it back in 2012, or originally when I was 13 years old, I did love this game. But I recently replayed it last year with the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster, and it is not as good as I remember. Not nearly as good as I remember. In terms of the story, it has a plethora of pacing issues. You start off playing as Connor's dad, Haytham, but then it pulls you out, puts you in Connor's shoes when he's a kid, makes you work your way up, and then you have this underwhelming story with Connor having no charisma, no interesting factors to him. Originally I used to defend Connor's persona, saying that he's a fish out of water, he's uncomfortable, he doesn't trust these foreign people that have destroyed everything that he's had. But when you look at it now, through just in general, he's just an unlikable character. I'm not coming after the performance of the actor, really. It's just how Connor's written. He's not a likable character. So you play this game and Connor's just not likable. The story is very, like I said, a lot of pacing issues. I think this game did have multiplayer, if I remember correctly. Nothing too memorable there. The appearance, the graphics for the time were really nice, but Now my big issue with the game is it was the first time an Assassin's Creed game wasn't taking place during a time period where you had buildings that were super close up to each other, where you could have really consecutive parkouring mechanics. What I mean by that is when you look at AC1, 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, all of those games took place in time periods where the cityscapes were super condensed. So you had a lot of area and traversal where it involved you just staying on the rooftops or on buildings. With AC3, because it's during the colonial times, during the development of America, you have a lot of like cottages and villages that are just very spread out. And so there was a lot of empty space in between walking, and it just doesn't feel very fluid traversing the world. And then when you're in the wilderness, well, they did hype this up to be a big mechanic here where you'd be able to hunt animals and sell their furs and such. Literally the wilderness feels like it's like a story, like a pop out storybook. The trees feel very like cardboardy. They just pop up. There's a lot of load-ins and not very detailed. A lot of like empty, like invisible walls that like make you feel very restricted. Doesn't feel very open. So yeah, AC3, not the best in this series. It's in 11th place, second to last, and it is better than AC1. That is for sure. Better story, better gameplay mechanics. You get a cool ass tomahawk. Like there are really cool things about this game. The modern day timeline, what they did with Desmond and wrapping that up and everything, that was really cool. But overall, for the story that you played through most of this game, the amount of pacing issues and every other issue I mentioned, it's in 11th place. All right, so in 10th place we have Assassin's Creed Revelations, and clearly this is not the AC Revelations game case or box art, but I'm using the Ezio collection on the Xbox One as the placeholder because when I originally got this game, it was digitally on the Xbox 360 marketplace, so I only have a digital version of AC Revelations, so this copy is going to do. Recently I replayed Revelations, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, whenever the Ezio collection came out, and my feelings about Revelations have never changed. Originally playing it, I felt that it was seriously Ubisoft just recycling the same game, the same resources from AC2 and Brotherhood, and just pushing out a third game again. I wasn't a fan of the setting, and this isn't to knock Ubisoft feeling like they should have used the setting to, as the finale for Ezio's story. But honestly, this game just feels like Brotherhood with just a slightly different alteration to it. So with the lack of innovation, it's easily going to be towards the bottom of the list for me. It didn't really try anything new or do anything too different. It is the final chapter in Ezio's story, and I love his love interest in this story. I love the hook hidden blade that you get. I like seeing an older, grislier Ezio Auditore, but I put it above AC3 because it's Ezio. Still more consistent, better paced story, even though if the resources are so overly reused, and it's better than AC1 in every conceivable way. At number 9, we have Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. AC4, when I played it originally back in 2013, I think it was the first game I picked up on my brand new Xbox One, and playing through it back then, and then playing through it again recently this year on the Assassin's Creed, the Rebel Collection, I have to say that this game was, I know a lot of people say this is their favorite Assassin's Creed game, that this pushed the series in a lot of different ways, with the ship combat, being a pirate, being so much more open world, having this duality between a pirate and an assassin. I'm just not a fan of it. I've never been a fan of it. I think Edward is poorly developed. I think the twist, his turn towards the end of the game when he finally realizes that he wants to be an assassin, is just too forced. I feel like the supporting cast of characters isn't very well developed, and the ship combat's a blast, and the customization and all of that is great. I love all of that. And then but I do feel like the world itself just feels very empty to a degree. Most of it's water, most of it's ship combat, but the parts of the world where you do explore on terrain are the weakest parts of the game. They feel very set up and not very well lived in. It feels very video game-esque in the sense that it's like a 90s video game where it's just there it's textures and it's objects placed there, but it doesn't feel like a lived-in world. So whenever I'm outside of the ship, I personally feel like I'm just in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, AC4, not a fan of its story, not a fan of its world. The ship combat's a blast though. It's better than Revelations because it does push the innovation there. And the modern day timeline for AC4 kind of it's non-intrusive to a degree, but it's still like they put it there, but it doesn't do anything. So yeah, but it's better than Revelations. Definitely better than 3 now that I look back on it. I do like the ties that it has with 3, and it's obviously better than 1. All right, at number 8 on the list, we have Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, clearly this is not an original AC Rogue copy. I never owned it. The first time I played AC Rogue was actually this year on the Rebel Collection, because I did not want to plug in my 360 when I had an Xbox One when this came out in 2014 to play it. So I just waited until they eventually put a remastered version of it on, and here it is. And having played it recently, I think from this point onward, from the 8th spot here of AC Rogue onward, these are pretty much all of the AC games that I enjoyed. And when you get higher up there, I really, really enjoyed. AC Rogue was a pleasant playthrough. I played AC4, and then I went into Rogue, and Rogue really was that step. I can't believe I missed out on this so much. I love this story here. The idea of this assassin turned Templar, this different perspective, even though there is a lot of overlooks in terms of the Templar practices that Shay doesn't really acknowledge. Some inconsistencies to a degree. But just that concept, seeing that turn, this twist on the story, not so traditional, and kind of continuing the modern day storyline from AC4 in this game, but then also, explaining it more thoroughly. And the fact that this story takes AC3, Unity, and 4 and puts them all together in this consistent, coherent timeline that just makes sense. I love that connection that it puts. And maybe because I played it this year and had been missing out on it for so long, it's going to have a special place in my heart even more now. But yeah, just seeing how it connects everything was a wonderful surprise. It plays wonderfully. It recycles and reuses pretty much everything from AC4. But because it felt like such a smaller, more linear experience, a shorter story, it honestly felt like it was just a more enjoyable time than AC4. While AC4 kind of felt like it was forced to be this massive world, Rogue is more of this linear experience, and I quite thoroughly enjoyed that with this twist on the storyline. So yeah, it's at the 8th spot. It's better than 4's story. It takes the best parts of 4's gameplay and puts it in there. It's better than Revelations, and Revelations did recycle a lot of things, but Rogue still does enough new for me to put it this high. It's better than AC3. It's better than AC1. All right, at the 7th spot, we have Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. AC Brotherhood has a very special place in my heart. It was actually the first Assassin's Creed game I ever played. And going and having replayed it quite recently on the Ezio collection on the Xbox One, but this is my original copy. But playing it not too long ago, I remember why I love it so much. It takes everything great about AC2, reuses it, but there's such a stark difference in the graphics. Like, it's still a very nice looking game. Back then, it was a beautiful game. But my favorite part of this game is the character progression of Ezio. Ezio is obviously everyone's favorite assassin, and he's obviously the best one because Ubisoft put the most amount of effort into exploring his character. Brotherhood really shows Ezio come full force into the master assassin, building this brotherhood, building it up, taking over this region of Italy. I love the story here. I love the presentation of it all, the setting, the set pieces. The multiplayer was, when it first came out, was a blast to play with friends. Like that was really fun for me. And to this day, I still have a fondness for its presentation. There's just a certain magic to this game. The Brotherhood and AC2 that no other Assassin's Creed games have. It has this charm to it, and I can't put my finger on it, but it is a really, really good game. And back in the day, it was a great game. Obviously better than AC3, AC1, AC4. Better than Revelations. I put it above Rogue specifically because I like Ezio more. It does feel like a sequel to 2. It has all the advantages it needed, and I feel like Ubisoft just nailed on all fronts with this game. Like it was a really, really good game, and I do love this game. At number 6 on the list, we have Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with AC Syndicate, and I feel like it's a forgotten Assassin's Creed game to a degree. It came out in 2015, and this is the game that sold the least amount of copies that convinced Ubisoft they finally needed to take a year off and not annualize the franchise. But AC Unity did a lot of great things. First of all, it's a beautiful game. Their interpretation of 19th century London, it was the most modern time period in the timeline at this point. I honestly do not remember the modern day timeline at all. But the dynamic between Evie and Jacob, I love seeing them building up this brotherhood once again. Like that storyline of building up a brotherhood had been pretty much like ignored since AC Brotherhood, in my opinion, in the franchise, and seeing Syndicate take it back, building up this Syndicate. The personalities of Evie and Jacob, very charming. I found them very likable. Their skill tree being leveled up. But yeah, the story was very pleasant. Gameplay was great. Beautiful, beautiful game. I love the zip line that you have. And this was the last Assassin's Creed game that most people deem a true Assassin's Creed game, because after this we have the RPG AC games, and a lot of people don't see those as traditional Assassin's Creed games. Well, this is the last one, and there's just a special factor to that. So with that said, it's at the number 6 spot. All right, we're down to the final 5, the big 5, the top 5. And at the 5th spot, in 5th place, we have Assassin's Creed Unity. When this game originally came out, it was hammered for the amount of bugs it had. But I played it a few months after it came out, and I had enough patches there where I had a smooth gameplay time. And I will say the storyline isn't anything new. I think this is the least amount of risks that Ubisoft took with the franchise in terms of its storyline and what it does with the modern day timeline. Arno is a cool character, and I think if you play Rogue and then play this game and see the ties there, it adds to the story complexity. But yeah, doesn't take too many risks with the story per se. And it's pretty forgettable, but the freaking world, man, like even in comparison to Syndicate, this game is absolutely gorgeous. Like in 2020 standards, if you play this game on an Xbox Series X, oh my goodness, to a degree it was ahead of its time. And the amount of NPCs and the crowds, the density of the crowds that it has, the amount of detail, the feeling, like it feels like a next gen Assassin's Creed game. Like if you play Assassin's Creed 2 and then you play this game, this feels next gen, and I just can't explain it. But yeah, there's a huge amount of customizability. There's a huge amount of microtransactions as well, which does plague it to a degree. Most modern day Assassin's Creed games have this issue, but it has to be said. But why it's in 5th place is because it pretty much hammers home everything about an Assassin's Creed game and makes it feel next gen. It makes it feel new. And unfortunately, because of the reception that AC Unity and Syndicate got, it looked like Ubisoft completely stepped away from going in this direction with next gen Assassin's Creed games and went with a more RPG route, which a lot of people have an issue with. And I can make a separate video on that and my personal opinion and analysis on why Ubisoft made that decision. But this game, it feels like the most next-gen Assassin's Creed game that I can say. And it was pretty much the last one where we got a traditional Assassin's Creed game. I know I said Syndicate was, but Syndicate still had this duality between Evie and Jacob, whereas this one was singular protagonist Arno. And the multiplayer was a blast, doing heists with friends and in a group, planning them out. I mean, putting up the difficulty level. Like, I had so much fun with that, and I wish that they would input that gameplay mechanic of multiplayer into these future Assassin's Creed games, but obviously they haven't. I played it safe to a degree, but I put it above Syndicate mainly because of the multiplayer mechanic of it. But it is a blast to play. The story's fun, but it is just a beautiful world. I think this is easily, when you look at from AC1 to Syndicate, this is the most beautiful world, easily. Next, in 4th place, we have Assassin's Creed 2. My personal opinion, AC2 was an incredible game. If you go from AC1 to AC2, there is obviously a difference in terms of Ubisoft's direction with this game. They fixed every conceivable issue that you could have had with AC1 and revolutionized AC2. Better protagonist, better storyline, better world, better time period, better modern day storyline input. Everything is better here. Released in 2009, I would still highly recommend this game. And prior, Obviously, if you know the order of these games, you know that the top 3 are going to be the RPG AC games. But prior to the release of those games, I always said that this was the best Assassin's Creed game. And I still stand by that to a degree. In terms of traditional Assassin's Creed games, this is still the best one. In terms of how the storyline unfolds, the development of Ezio, seeing from beginning to end, from not an assassin to an assassin, and this family idea of being an assassin in hereditary terms, and the supporting cast of characters and everything this game excels at. Like, this is the best Assassin's Creed game in terms of a traditional AC game. I think everyone who's played these games has a soft spot for AC2, because AC2 obviously is the template for which every Assassin's Creed game afterwards took from. Obviously, Brotherhood and Revelations recycled the most amount from AC2. But 3, 4, Unity, Rogue, Syndicate, they all take so much away from 2, and 2 laid out the groundwork. My favorite Assassin's Creed story, up until the last 3 to have released, was 2. It's easy to see why Ezio is everyone's favorite. There's really not much to say. It's in 4th place and above every game I've listed previously, because it's better in every conceivable way. Some of the games might have better gameplay mechanics now, or more detailed world, better presentation, better graphics, obviously, but this game, at its core, is the template for everything. It is better than AC1 in every conceivable way, and the amount of influence it had for the rest of the franchise going forward, and still to this day, it explains itself. Assassin's Creed 2 is a great game. I will say it is a great game, and is worthy of 4th place, and 5 years ago would have been number 1. And now we are down to the top 3. And I know that this is probably, a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with me here. Yes, the top 3 are the 3 RPG Assassin's Creed games. The top 3 are the 3 most recent entries in the franchise. But I'm going to stand by this. Hear me out. In 3rd place, we have Assassin's Creed Origins. This was originally my game of the year for 2017. I fell in love with this game. The idea that Ubisoft was able to make the entire country of Egypt your map was great. And even though technically the entire country isn't the map, it feels huge. And I love the idea that Origins is the actual origin of how the Assassin's Creed started. And then seeing these ties to Alexander the Great and Cleopatra and then Egyptian mythology, it is fantastic. But the reason it's above AC2 is the risks it takes and exceeds at, in my opinion. The transition from stealth-based third-person action-adventure open-world games into RPG with this game, I feel they did a great job. At first, I hated the combat system, this new combat system, but now I quite love it. The loot system, the armor system, the customizability, the leveling system, it all takes getting used to if you're coming from previous Assassin's Creed games. But once you get used to it, it is so much more fun than any other Assassin's Creed games. And the story is so much more complex here. The new modern day protagonist in Layla, seeing her story, she's pretty much like Desmond 2.0. It is fantastic. It's just fantastic. And I'm trying not to be too long-winded with the explanations for these games, but Origins is a fantastic game. I love this game, and though I have not played it in about 3 years from now, and I actually never did play the DLC, the way that this game takes so many risks with the franchise, but pretty much succeeds in my opinion, warrants a 3rd place spot. It's better than Assassin's Creed 2. It truly is. We can argue the storyline isn't the best, or Ezio is a better protagonist than Bayek, which I would agree with. But the world here and how much more fun it is to play, and the modern day storyline, of course, it's 3rd place easily. 2nd place, runner up for the best Assassin's Creed game. The number 2 spot is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. AC Odyssey, I truly love the shit out of this game. I can't put it any other way. I love this game. Originally, I would have thought Colonial Times America would have been my favorite time period and setting for an Assassin's Creed game to take place in, but Ancient Greece is a close second and probably first now. This game looks beautiful. Now, going back after having played newer games, this game, especially if you play Red Dead 2 that same year in 2018, this game doesn't look as good. It's still a really good looking game, but Cassandra as a character, you should play Cassandra over Alexios easily. But Cassandra as a character, very likable, my favorite protagonist up until this point. She is just a strong character, has a lot of heart, has a lot of development for herself. My gripe with the game has to do with its side quests feeling very recycled, redundant, repetitive, but how they explored the Greek mythology, I absolutely fell in love with, but then they mix it in with the Ubisoft Isu idea of things. I can't go off on a tangent with this game. I'll talk about this game forever. I'm trying to keep it short and concise. I can do a discussion defending these games in a different video, but what I will say about this game, it's better than Origins, pretty much in terms of it does everything better than Origins. The loot system's enhanced, the combat system's enhanced, the skill tree's better, and now you get to have a ship because most of Greece is water. So the ship combat, the ship customizability, the ship, everything is so much. Truly, this game is a blast to play. Yeah, I have so much to say about this game that I don't know where to start with it. Play the DLC. Great DLC. Modern days time storyline, but best up until this point. Yeah, it's better than Origins in the same way that 2 is better than 1 because it does everything better. You can really tell that Odyssey was Ubisoft finally making that approach to enhance and fully go into just RPG mechanics at this point. I have my gripes with the game, like that's for sure, the same way I do with every single one of these games. Personally, I feel that the ending to the main storyline without the DLC included is very anticlimactic. But and what I mentioned about the side quest, but this game, so much fun to play. If you're a fan of Greek mythology, you're going to love this game. My number one spot for best Assassin's Creed game in first place is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. To no surprise, obviously, because, this list is basically process of elimination. Yes, the most recent entry in the franchise, in my opinion, is the best. I feel that Valhalla does everything it possibly can to be the best Assassin's Creed game it can be in terms of an RPG. The RPG, it feels like a true RPG. The development of your character, role-playing as Eivor, and I highly recommend everybody let the enemies pick your gender, okay? I'm just saying, it's the canon storyline, it'll be the best for you. This balance of Isu and Norse mythology, Eivor as a character, you can watch my review for the game. Like, that's my feelings for this game. What I'm going to spend time talking about here is why it's number one. Valhalla has the best modern day storyline, in my opinion. The twists it takes, the turns it takes, the risks it takes, everything is so entertaining to see unfold. Eivor as a character, very likable. Maybe not as likable as Cassandra, but I'll wait till the DLC to determine that. I have my gripes, as I said in the review, but it's better than Odyssey in terms of the world, progression, the detail, the presentation, the cast of characters, the in-depth side quests. It blows Origins out of the water in terms of that too. And then the reason that I would take this over AC2 is because I would rather play this game than AC2. There's so much more replayability. It's so much more fun to play this game. There's way more to do in this game. I find that the storyline in this game is it truly wonderfully unfolds. Like, I don't have that many complaints with the game. I prefer RPG Assassin's Creed games. Now, that is just me. I will still take a traditional stealth-based third-person action-adventure open-world Assassin's Creed game. Don't get me wrong, and I feel like there will be a time and place for Ubisoft to do that, both in RPG and a traditional Assassin's Creed games in the same sense how they did Rogue and Unity in the same year. But this game, I love it. I can't say enough about it. The exploration of Norse mythology. I can't wait for the DLC. It's only going to enhance my opinions on the game. I'm a sucker for this idea of conquest and conquering and being able to have such a wide variety of characters that I care about, and then giving me, and the first time in the Assassin's Creed franchise, you have like your own settlement, your own place to customize, to develop, to upgrade. That sets it home for me. I feel like I have a place in that world, versus the other Assassin's Creed games where I don't. So yeah, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is number 1, and this is my ranking of all of the games. I'll put a list right here, all of the games ranked from 12 to 1. If you disagree, please give me a comment, let me know. We can have civil discourse here. Yeah, so I'm going to say thank you for watching. I've been waiting to make this video. So yeah, I'll see you guys again.